Hello and welcome to Jamie's Football Chat. I've currently got John Evans with me tonight, which I'm really pleased to have you on board, John. You
Cheers,
okay?
thank you. Yeah, pretty good.
Good. And it is a Friday as well, which is always good.
Absolutely.
So just firstly say I did a video, I think it was yesterday, the day before, reviewed Man United versus Burnley. We got a really, really important win. I think someone on my Twitter feed did say something about they couldn't hear the sound. It's quite quiet, but I have done a couple of compares, and the sound seems okay compared to other videos as well. So maybe it was just speaker problems on the one person's phone, and a couple of other people have said the sound was okay. So hopefully it's not a big issue, and hopefully everyone can hear this right now, and obviously if they watch it later on. So no, everyone, just thank you very much for watching, and enjoy this. So what I want to do is speak about Liverpool versus Man United. Got a massive game on Sunday, and then they've also got John on board, massive Wolves fan, to talk about Wolves v West Brom, which is tomorrow. So two derbies there. We've got Manchester versus Liverpool, and then we've got the big Midlands derby with Wolves versus West Brom. So it's two big games this weekend. I think the Wolves game's at 12:30 tomorrow, and then United game is at, I think, 4-ish on Sunday. So looking forward to that. So, John, have you had a good week in that, and work being busy?
Work is very busy. I've never known it like this at the moment. It's I can't complain. It's there's plenty of much worse situations. So at the moment, it's okay. It's okay.
It's good. And then you come on to do this, and it's something different, a bit of fun, isn't it? It's shame the last video we did it in person. It was just not long after lockdown 1, maybe, and I think it's because of the rules thing. We ended up doing a video in your garage, well, not in your garage, on your garage like sort of porch, and we had to measure out the 2-meter rule, didn't we, or something? Do you remember?
We had the social distance stick.
Yeah,
and I remember I think it was probably colder outside than it was today. It was freezing.
It was, and today's cold as well. But it was really cold. We had to. It was freezing. I remember we had my coat on for the video, but we had to just sort of show everybody that we was, within the rules. So that was good. We had a good Wolves and Man United discussion then, and that was saying all your sort of favourite players that you've seen and whatnot. So that's really good. So I think first of all, let's have a quick chat on the Wolves West Brom game, John, and what your thoughts on the game. I also want to talk a little bit about Nuno, and obviously he's sort of rumours surrounding him at the moment. You've also got on a quick couple of things on Fabio Silva, the young sort of Scarlet that you've got. Everyone's raving about him, but again, he's having to playing more lately because of Raul's injury. So a couple of those things really. So far away, John.
Yeah, sure. I mean, with regards to the West Brom game, I mean, as you said when we were just having a chat before, I didn't realise it had been so long since we last played them.
2012, isn't it?
February 2012.
Yeah.
To be fair, the result, the match, I remember it very well because it was McCarthy's last game. He got sacked straight afterwards.
Was it his last game?
Well, to be fair, you lose 5-1 at home to your local rivals. It stands a very good chance it's going to be your last game.
Yeah.
And I think Man United had done us by the same score a couple of weeks earlier as well. So it was it was clearly not a great time to be a Wolves fan. Because actually we thought that was a bad time, but then actually I suppose Terry Connor took over and the season just seemed to get worse from that point on.
Oh my gosh, that was even worse. They're saying that even maybe if you'd have kept with McCarthy and backed him and whatnot, you may have even stayed up, but you just don't know, do you?
No, to be honest,
I think you were going on a downward spiral, wasn't you, at that point?
I remember at the time we were still working together, and there was another colleague who was a Wolves fan, and he said the players just looked like McCarthy had asked them to do too much for too long. I don't think anybody would have saved us that year.
I think you're right.
I think we were doomed at that point. I think there might have been several managers that might have stopped the drop into League One. But
because you were linked with Steve Bruce at one point. I remember he was actually linked, and then there's a bit of a paper uproar in the media that they didn't really want him, and then he didn't get the job, did he?
I would have been absolutely fine with Steve Bruce, and I think if Steve Bruce had come in, I do not think we would have dropped to League One. I don't think we'd have bounced right back, but we would have. We would have probably had an okay season because I think we had a lot of players who came in because we wanted to be Premier League, and whoever took over, it would have been a rebuilding job. to be fair, I don't think it could have got much worse than it did. Although that said, maybe the fact that we were able to drop so much and have a serious rebuilding task like we did is what we needed. So I've got to be honest, the season we did the double drop was not great, but the season in League One was fantastic. It surprised me.
Great.
Because we won a lot of games. I was completely shocked by the standard of football in League One. It was so much better than I thought it was going to be. The only difference being was that I thought the standard of the referees was not as good. We were finding we were getting many more dodgy decisions, and from a completely selfish point of view, there were no teams there really to get excited about.
That's true.
You were playing Crawley Town and Stevenage.
I think we're Leeds in that league. Then I think there wasn't there.
I don't think they were back then.
I'm not sure if they dropped down.
I think
they did go down to League One for a while, didn't they? But they may have gone back up to the Championship by that point.
Yeah, I think the big matches that year were Sheffield United were down there with us. That was the big game. But I don't think they were even close to going up that year. I remember that we were pushed all the way by Leyton Orient and Peterborough. And if you've got to say, if you know that Leyton Orient and Peterborough are pushing you, you know how far you've dropped.
Definitely. And I think, like you said, just to go back on that point, that obviously that's when McCarthy got sacked after that West Brom game, and you last played them, and it obviously seems so long ago now. It's nearly 8 years ago, wasn't it?
Nearly 8 years.
Nearly 8 years ago, which is crazy. But I think that, like you say, that there was times, I think, from hearing of Wolves fans that you had, the Carl Henry there. I think he was sort of getting dropped, and you had Roger Johnson coming in as captain. I think it created a lot of that dressing room unrest, didn't it? And then I think there's only one way you're going to go, and that was just down the league. You had O'Hara, all that other stuff as well with him. He wasn't playing very well, and I think then at that particular point you'd gone as far as you could, which is a shame. You needed probably you tried to go up that next level to bother people like Roger Johnson's and O'Hara to go a bit more, but it just didn't work out really. I think that maybe you had a different manager then when McCarthy was looking to get better to come in, and then you may have done better. But you tried to get a manager to come in who was looking just a caretaker and didn't have much experience, and then you just went straight down. It was basically like, from what my point of view was seeing you sack McCarthy, play sort of McCarthy football. You get McCarthy's assistant in, you're playing the sort of McCarthy way again, and nothing changed. So all it was really was just a straight drop. And I think that was bad for Wolves fans to see, but you were definitely a much better team there.
It was. I mean, I think it was a shame back then, because I think we got promoted. We got promoted by the playoffs, and that was I'm getting confused with the first time we went up. No, we got promoted as champions, and it was a very, very good. It was a good season that did it. When we got promoted up there, I remember the gym I used to go to. We used to get a lot of the Express and Star reporters working there, and I remember hearing a couple of them in the showers. And they were saying, and forgive me if I get the teams wrong, but he said you got Wolves, Portsmouth, Burnley, and Hull, who are up there. So there's 4 awful teams. He said just through simple maths, at least one of them has got to survive, and the Wolves just have to make sure they stay above the other 3. And we managed to do it. I think we finished 15th. So it's that tricky thing. When any team goes up, it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, we saw with Norwich last year. Norwich tore the Championship apart, and they went up and got relegated. It's it's very difficult to make that leap, and there's no guarantee you'll do it. So any team that goes up, the only thing you've got to do is try and survive. And we did that with McCarthy. I think we finished in 15th place. So there was a gap between us and the relegation team. So that was that relegated team. So that was good. The next season. We lost. Portsmouth went down. Hull, I'm going to struggle here. I can't remember who the third team was that went down. But essentially, we lost a lot of teams. We lost some awful teams, and we were replaced with. I can't remember. But I know that West Bromwich Albion came up. Newcastle came up. And so you had to look at the general quality of the Premier League. And the quality of the Premier League as a whole got better with the teams that dropped, with the teams that replaced them. And out of that, and I know that on that second season, we only got survival like 3 minutes from the end.
Against Blackburn, wasn't it?
Against the Blackburn, and that goal. I remember that game. You have to look at the season as a whole and say, against a better quality Premier League, we actually finished with more points than we did the previous season. So, okay, we survived with 5 minutes to go from the end of the season, but you have to look at that as progress. We'd established ourselves. We've got more points to have a better quality league. That's got to be better. The next season went on, and okay, we've got O'Hara in on loan. And to be honest, for the second half of that season, he looked a world beater. He was a great player, and we signed players who had got Premier League experience. So everything McCarthy did looked like it was going to be progress and just that slow building up to being where survival is not the aim. Where survival, you start to take that for granted. And to be honest, that season, the first third of it, I think we were getting some fairly decent results, and then it just completely and utterly fell apart. I don't think anybody could have predicted what happened with Roger Johnson. It seemed unfortunate. There was a colleague of ours who was a Birmingham City fan, and he raved about him. He said, "You've got an absolute." He was great diamond.
In that when they won the League Cup. He was brilliant, wasn't he? Because obviously he was at Cardiff, and I think he was with Scott Dan. They had that really good defensive partnership, didn't they?
That was what our colleague had said. That everyone was talking about Scott Dan, and his comment was that Scott Dan is only appears so good because he's playing next to Roger Johnson. Yeah, and so
Scott Dan went to Blackburn. But I think it's just like you say that the league this season, as everybody knows, is Man United are currently top of the league at the moment. So I thought I'd get that in. But I think that it doesn't happen very often. I think the last time we were top of the league was 2013 when we won the league. So that was a while ago, as 7 years ago. So I think to me, what the league is like now, it's so open, and some of the top teams over the last summer because of COVID didn't improve. So the teams that were below them caught up a bit, and the league has become a lot more compact. There's no runaway sort of team at the moment, and then because at the bottom, there's some start the season off some really sort of poor teams. You had Sheffield United didn't even win a game. You had Fulham with not many points. I think Burnley were down there a bit as well, and even Arsenal was at the start down there. But obviously, then lately, Fulham have picked up with Scott Parker, had really, really good points against Tottenham a couple of days ago. You've also got Sheffield United picked up the first win against Newcastle. And I think that to me is that I'm pretty sure I think Sheffield United will go down, maybe Fulham as well. But with those teams catching up and the other teams not pulling away, it's going to be a right old tasty sort of relegation battle. I think it's going to be quite a few teams in it. I think for me, from what's happening to Wolves at the moment, I think you'll probably finish not as good as last season at all. I think you'll probably finish 10th, maybe, which I think what I'm going to sort of come on to before we say about the game is sort of expectations, because I know that at the moment Wolves fans some of them are feeling disappointed, but again, you've sort of got to look back again. You were saying a couple of years ago you're in League One, so I think at the moment you're on that sort of upward spiral of doing really well. You're getting some younger players in. You lost Jota, who's obviously done really well at Liverpool. He's injured at the moment. But I think that you've got Fabio Silva, which we'll come on to in a minute. And I think that the way that Wolves are going, you are a club on the up. So I think for me, the interim at the moment, you're not doing very well. But obviously this season, even if you finish 10th, 11th, it still wouldn't be too bad as long as you progress again. Next season, it's all about, for me as you guys, is keeping some of your key players, like Chiore and Raul and even Cody in that as well, but also and Bolly, but also you've got the midfield boys as well, Neves and Martinez. You've got a lot of key players there you can't lose. But if any of them sort of go again and one or two you don't really replace them, that's the issue. And I think that it's keeping Nuno is key. And you might not do as well this season, but again, the league's very open this season, and I think because teams now know how to play against Wolves, you have become a bit more easier to beat because you don't really ever score many goals. You're not like if we scored against you like we did a couple of weeks ago, we knew then you weren't going to score again because even if you scored first, you only probably score one rather than if we scored two or three, you ain't going to come back. So I think it's because that you don't play that expansive football. You play the style that Nuno's done with, and you've had Raul up front, and he would get you out a lot of holes, and he was that catalyst for you. But because of having Raul out, you've lost those goals, and the hold-up play, it really has affected you more than it's ever done. So I think if he'd have still been fit now, you probably would have seen a bit of a different story. Not as good as last season, but still good. But I think with him out, it's definitely sort of knocked your sails. But you'll definitely come back without a shadow of a doubt. So what do you think about that?
I think where we are this season, it's not an unfair reflection of the team itself. I think the last couple of seasons, and I think Roy Keane said it last year about the Wolves. He said this is not a great team. This is a team
That's
having a
it.
great season. And I think the
Yeah,
last couple of seasons where we finished seventh, that is above where we needed to be.
yeah,
Because I mean, my point of view about the Wolves is that we've never really, even though we've done well, and let's be honest, any team that finishes seventh in the league 2 years running, you've got to class that as doing well. It never seemed to me from the matches, when we used to actually go to them, it never seemed to
seems a
me
time
that,
ago now.
yeah, I know, it's yeah, that's a different story altogether.
We'll
But
part that.
it never seemed that we were really on top. We always seemed very fragile. And
Yeah,
it's never as if, half an hour into the game, you just think, yeah, we're definitely going to win this game. And we would go on and do it. I mean, even some of the matches, I mean, the one last season that really stuck out to me where performance-wise, we really did beat somebody was the Aston Villa game.
and Man City game
And
as well. You were brilliant in that Man City game.
yeah, that was a good game, but it's to completely dominate a match like we did against the Villa. But even then, okay, Neves scored a great goal. And I've got to say, I can't even remember our second goal, but I know we went 2-0 up, and then right at the end we conceded a soft goal to them. So even then,
Oh
when
yeah,
we'd been dominating them, even then it was a nervy finish. We could always say that for the last couple of years, Wolves have threatened to thrash somebody, but we've never yet done it.
yeah.
It just doesn't seem to have worked. And actually, in the years that Nuno's been here, this is his fourth season. You've got to say this is
Is it?
it's his first real injury crisis. He's never
It
suffered more
is.
than one or two players out at any one time for any length.
Well, it's lucky as well to say as well, John, that sorry, the thing with Wolves is that you had that always had that sort of small mentality and sort of international feel
Mm,
to your club in terms of a small squad, and he likes working with that small squad. And you had the massive Europa League runs and that, and you'd done that
yeah.
last 2 or 3 seasons, and I think that you didn't really have many big injuries in that. To a lot of players, and I think that it helped you because the players now it's probably catch up with you having those long seasons, and now obviously having the injuries that you're having because of the quick games that we're having. And I think it's like you say, it's that like Liverpool fans will be saying, they're having lots of injuries. But again, Man United last season had Rashford out for a lot. We had Pogba out for a bit, Martial out for a bit. So, it's a lot of players there that we had out, key players that would affect any team when you have your key players out. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's like, for you guys, it's now you're having your injury worries, but all teams have that, don't they? It's just about
Yeah.
adapting.
And if Nuno's thing is that he wants a small squad, if you get an injury crisis like we're having, it's going to affect you very, very
It
badly.
is because he
Um,
likes that mentality, doesn't he?
yeah, yeah, and I can completely understand that. And if you've got the if you've got the medical staff, I mean, there's certain things you can do that can prevent injuries. And I think about the the medical staff at Wolves.
Yeah.
I mean, they are very good. To be fair, the doctor at the Wolves used to be my doctor, so I have actually he actually treated my toe once on a running injury, but yeah, they have got a very very good medical team. Because I
Yeah.
think, from what I remember, the doctor who's there, who used to be my doctor, is now also he works part time for the Wolves, but he's also the Premier League's medical advisor.
That's
So
amazing.
I may be wrong on that, but that was what I'd heard a couple of years ago. So they do have a very good medical staff, and so
Yeah.
they were very good at keeping players injury free. But yeah, there's only so much you can do about when someone cracks the skull or something like that, and people turn on
But that's the
do all
thing is,
sorts of
like
things.
with Raul, I don't know. Obviously, not a Wolves fan, but it was awful injury what he had.
Mm,
But it didn't seem that long ago since obviously he came out of hospital quite quickly. He's obviously been pictured at some of
mm.
the games. So he seems okay, but is it because you must have to? I don't know what the timescales are or anything. No one's really said. But has he got to do? Even though he looks okay, has he got to do a lot of rest? Is he even allowed to do football, or when's he even looking to say for him to come back? Do you know? Or
They've not released too much because I think a fractured skull can be one of those very, very tricky things. Because I always
is
remember a
it?
few years ago that was it Petr Cech got injured by
He did.
a
Stephen
player who
Hunt.
went. Stephen Hunt came to sign for us after
Yeah,
that. But and let's be honest, whenever you saw Petr Cech play, you always had that. You always had his head guard on, didn't he?
he did.
So I think it affected him quite badly. So I don't know. I mean I'm pretty sure that the rules will not let him play if there's going to be any kind of worry, or if he has to wear some sort of head shield to protect his skull.
So has he got
then he
stitching
will.
in now or something? Or
You could see on the match the other day when he was on, they picked him in the crowd, and he's certainly got a scar on his head. So he'd obviously
really?
had part of his hair shaved off to fix it.
Because
But
his hair is now, it's quite short. It wasn't like
yeah,
that before, was it? That's
no,
just because of the operation he's probably had, isn't it?
I'd imagine it's because of the operation. Yeah.
But they
So
don't want to
obviously,
put too much pressure on him. But surely, because you got Catroni back now, surely he's not going to come back till next season, is he? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, you've got to hope that they're not going to rush him back, ahead of when he needs to be. And with everybody who's been there before, it's where we've had injuries. It's much better to let them come back at their own time when they're ready, rather than rush them back and then risk having them out for longer.
Because I was quite surprised he was at the training ground, like literally like a couple of weeks after he did it. I was like, not training obviously, but just there with the team, which is good. But I was quite surprised, and fair play to him, and that he was doing that. I thought he'd have been doing a lot more resting.
No, I think he was. Again, I think it just depends on how severe the injury was. They haven't released too many details, because it's only going to ask further. People are only going to ask further questions if you release details like that. So we'll just have to see. I know he started light training. I'm going to assume he's not heading the ball.
How's he doing light training?
Yeah, I know he's come back to
already.
training. So
that's mad.
So it's you just can't say. He'll be back when he's good and ready.
What a player he was.
Well, to be honest, he surprised me, because when he signed, you looked at his goal record and you thought, he's not really who we're after. But then he started scoring and didn't really stop. So yeah, he's absolutely he's done what he needed to do.
And he'd score against all the big teams, and that he'd always perform, hold the ball up. Always get the when he's in the box, you thought he was going to score. So he's an old-fashioned centre forward, really, like your old one, obviously, like Bully. So he was, great. But he was still like, 29, 30 something. I'm sure he'll come back fine. But hopefully he has a speedy recovery. But I think, so from that, as we said, in terms of the expectations and that, and what do you think about, before we say about the game, is Nuno? Because there is some rumours that you see, like Tim Spears, a couple of others on Twitter, saying that I think Georgia Mendes and maybe looking to get to another club, and that probably a lot of it's obviously all rumours, but obviously sometimes there's no smoke without fire. So he probably maybe is looking for somewhere elsewhere, but what jobs does he go to, and are the jobs available? Probably not. So I can't see him leaving.
I only read about it this morning. It's the first I heard about it. Was this morning. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I mean, he's been here for a few years now. I'd imagine if it was me managing the team, as a fan, you always think, where do we go to in terms of that next level? How do you move to sort of going from just on the fringes of Europe to guaranteeing you get into Europe every year and then challenging for the Champions League? It's a very, very big leap to do at the moment. And after 3 years of work, 3 and a bit years of work, if anything, it looks like it's his first season of going backwards, really. Which is what it seems. I think, to be honest, I think it's actually a leveling off of where we need to be. I think we are about a mid-table team in terms of quality at the moment. To be honest, as a Wolves fan, if you consider where we were a few years ago, I would have gladly taken that back then. That you don't really have to worry too much about relegation. So we'll just have to see. I mean, the key thing is he signed a long-term contract in the summer.
Did he?
They say that was perhaps the most important signing of Wolves. He's someone who plays his cards close to his chest. We don't know a lot about it. There's been rumours before. I think there was talk of Arsenal when he went to.
There was
when Arteta took over.
Arteta went there.
And to be honest, I mean, I've had a season ticket now for, you've got to take it out of the equation a bit at the moment, but I think 93 was the first year I had my season ticket.
Amazing.
And in all those years of all those managers, we've had managers quit, we've had managers sacked. In my time, we've never had a manager get poached by a bigger team.
Did you ever have a manager go to England? No, because Hodl and that was
a lot of ex-England managers.
Ex-England managers, yeah.
We had a lot of ex-international managers, and I still think there should be a statistic about which team has had the most number of ex-international managers. Because let's be honest, we had Hodl, Taylor, McCarthy.
Solbakken now he's the manager of Norway. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Mad, isn't it?
I think he was a good manager, just at the wrong time for us.
Wrong time, yeah, and wrong players. Yeah.
It was.
So do you think that? Yeah, so like you're saying that from that there with Nuno, that you can't see him leaving at the moment, which is good. So do you think that the other one I was going to mention was Fabio Silva? Do you think he's got really potential in there? And he hasn't scored many goals at at your previous club or even your club, but he's raved about in Europe and that. So do you think that the moment he's just got to settle in, not play obviously at the moment he's playing more games because Raul's out, so. Do you think at the moment fans should not get on his back and and leave him?
No.
No.
I honestly believe that if it wasn't for this injury crisis, no one would even be thinking about him coming on and playing a match.
I agree.
He would be on the bench for and maybe coming on every other game for 10 or 15 minutes of experience. He is somebody. I mean, if you look at Traore when he came to us and he started playing for that first season, he didn't look anywhere near like he was on the pace.
No, he doesn't.
And then the next season he comes in and all of a sudden, different player.
Fabio scored a penalty, didn't
he? He did. And that is one thing to his credit. I honestly don't think we'd have seen him as a regular for a year or two. And Nuno definitely would not have wanted him to be playing the way he does. And yeah, he's not done what we hoped he would. But you've got to remember that fee was not him who set that. All he's done is play football. And I think he's only played some like 500 or 600 minutes of first team football in his career before he came to Wolves. It's not a lot of games, but it's there. He's been bought for the potential. And if you look at some of the matches he's played in, he's got himself in those positions. He's not scored apart from the penalty against Burnley, but he's missed some chances. But most importantly, he's got himself in those positions. He actually.
More.
He was always going to be a work in progress, and he's going to start to build, and it's going to be difficult. And I don't think Nuno would have wanted him in, which is probably why he's brought Cutrone back. Which do you want an unsettled or a previously unsettled player back in your team? I don't know whether that was the right call.
He didn't. I don't think he scored many goals in Fiorentina, did he? I don't think, from what I saw.
No, he didn't get many. I know
he scored. I think he had a bit of a run when he first joined Fiorentina, when he left you guys. Scored a few goals, and then I think he just went into a bit of a barren run. So I know the Wolves fans have got a chance about him and that the pizza one, whatever it is. It's a funny one, but yeah, I think that, like you say, it's a bit of a sort of an easy option to do rather than going to buy out another striker, which may not work. So I think that's probably why they've done that. Probably.
The thing is, I mean, what for a couple of weeks, I kept checking Twitter and all sorts of feeds because it seemed like there were two players who would just fit in absolutely perfectly. Diego Costa's the one, and the other was Hulk after he got released
from China. What's happened to any of those yet? Have they gone anywhere?
I've not heard a thing about him. I've not heard where he's gone, and you just think
they're both free transfers.
Yeah, they're both available, both free transfers. To be fair, the wages would be probably quite high. But I think either of those players would have provided a much more ready-made option of someone who could come in and start, fitting back in and doing the business. I don't know, and given the fact that Hulk is Brazilian, so he's going to know a bit of Portuguese. And so you could see that he might fit in okay. Diego Costa obviously has played in the Premier League before, so again you'd think he would fit in quite nicely. It just surprised me that we hadn't made a move for either of those, considering the situation that we were in.
Again, maybe they're worried about wages, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously I'm never Nuno and the management at Wolves are going to know a hell of a lot more about players in this sort of situation than me and you. So they're going to know more about this. And if things like that hadn't even been considered, I'd be surprised. And if they haven't gone for it, there's obviously reasons why that. That they're going to know more about it than you or I.
I bet you probably would have had one of those players if one of those players was Georgia Mendes' agent, but obviously I don't think Mendes is, so that's probably why.
No, he is actually for Costa. He is. I think he's. He's Costa's agent. So again, I mean, that seems like such a
That's
ready-made option.
yeah.
Why hasn't that happened? So there's obviously reasons behind it, whether it be wages or whether he's only going to move somewhere to get a 4-year contract or something. I don't know. It just surprises me. That's all. But that's what it is. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's still time left. I personally don't think they will sign
this
anybody
transfer window,
now.
hardly anyone has moved or anything. I think it's because of the COVID situation as well. No one's even really moving, and no one's making any deals. It's just so quiet compared to. I think this transfer window, you'll probably be, I don't know, might even probably go past 100 million probably for the whole of the Premier League. Nothing's going to really happen. So, which is obviously strange. Usually, a few moves go. We signed Bruno last season, and I think that we've got Amad Diallo, and he was obviously brought though in the summer. We just obviously agreed to sign him in January. So, that was obviously like the summer signing, really. So I think that it's going to be interesting. But I think from those points, as you said, I think like you say, he'll be a good player. And just like to people to sort of think that he's only still young and he'll get better. He's just been thrown in at the deep end. So I think from now is a good point to go on to the Wolves West Brom game. So you're playing tomorrow at 12:30, which you'll be watching. So I think that's going to be on Sky Sports, is it? I think.
Good question. I don't know actually. I'll be able to watch it because I've got access to Sky and Prime and BT Sports. So if it's there, I'll get it. So
before we quickly go on to the Man United Liverpool game, is what do you think the score will be and how well do you think it'll happen? Because I know Wolves have had a bad loss against Everton just gone. So, and obviously it's a derby. You want to win it and get revenge for your last game that you played. So, what do you think is going to happen, John?
To be honest, it's absolutely up in the air. The way we're playing at the moment, I mean, you look at some of the matches. I mean, against Everton in the first half, we seemed to play quite well. We were right. Conceded the goal very early on, which was unfortunate. And then the second half, it was just like, just
Adrian Durham was raving about Michael Keane when he saying he was playing really well. And they didn't even have a striker, did they? Everton. They had no Calvert-Lewin on the toast, and they were playing a false 9 with Sigurdsson, wasn't they?
Yeah.
Which is strange.
Yeah, I just don't know. And in these circumstances, I would normally go somewhere in the middle and say a draw. If you were playing the odds, you'd probably go for a Wolves win, because we've got enough players who are able to turn it in at the time. At the moment, I suppose our best player on form at the moment to be Neto. He's come in and is doing some fantastic stuff at the moment. Traore looks like he's started to get back to his best, but he's obviously injured. We've got a few players out.
He had his first goal, didn't he? Since like for donkeys, didn't he? Sort of thing. I can't remember who it was against.
Palace, I think. The FA Cup. It was a nice hit. Very nice hit.
Yeah, it's a really good goal. That was really good goal.
So we'll just have to see. It just depends which players become available by tomorrow. And
let's grab your score prediction. Head with your head or heart.
To be honest, I've got to say, if I've always said this in the past, that if somebody was to ever say to me, "Here's a patch of games of I don't know, 10 games, and you can get 19 points out of those 10 games, beating the Baggies home and away, or you can get 20 points out of those games, but losing to the Baggies home and away, which would you pick?" I'd always go for the 20 points and losing home and away. To me, points on the board are much more important, and I'd do that. So
at the end of the season, if you finish above West Brom, that's the main thing, isn't it? And I forgot to mention earlier on, they're obviously down this season. I mentioned earlier on Fulham and Sheffield United. That West Brom are right down at the bottom in the mire, and I think that obviously Allardyce coming after Bilic, and he looks like he could still get sacked as well if he's not doing very well at the minute. So obviously it's a big game for him, and I think that you probably look at the clubs to go down. You probably are looking at Sheffield United, Fulham, and maybe West Brom. So they're all in the mire. So but you never know. Do you, with Big Sam, if you'll turn it on? Do you after a few games? But I think he's probably past it now, isn't he? I think.
You look at a lot of these managers that have been around for a long time, and people do say that their tactics get stale and things do move on.
Especially like maybe with Mourinho as well.
Yeah, exactly. And Bruce and Pardew, you can just run the list off. Yeah. Yeah, and it's one of those that, you could always say he's never got a team relegated. To be honest, I think that the way things are going and the way they show what they did with Bilic, if things keep going the way they are, I still don't think he'll get a team relegated, because I don't think he'll be there at the end of the season.
That's a good point. Yeah, they'll probably it's probably what. Yeah, maybe like April, March. I mean, you might get the boot or something.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at how important Premier League survival is, if it's not looking good, a team will desperately do anything. I mean, look at last year with Watford, the way that Pearson looked like he was making strides, and the next thing he's gone, and Watford went down. So I don't know, if I have to say, you've got to look at the Albion and say, they're not scoring that many goals.
No, they haven't really got any goals. Like, before, when West Brom were in the Premier League and staying up, and that they might have Odin Wingy or Jeff Horsfield or some of these strikers. But at the moment, they've not really got any goals to come with. Robson Carner, and he's not going to score you sort of 15, 20 goals. I think that for me is that they had Sean Long before who scored a few goals, and he's obviously, I think he's at Southampton now. So obviously they haven't really got many goal scorers. I think if you look back on as well, is that, you're on about strikers, and obviously Southampton, obviously this season they've had the sort of fairy tale sort of season. They're doing really, really well and they played some really good football. But again, as Wolves fans, you could even buy him. He's a really good striker, isn't he? He's obviously in the England team. He's a good striker. And obviously West Brom will let go of Charlie Austin as well, who was in the scratch, but up for the scrap. But I think he's got probably a bit too old now. He's probably not even Premiership class anymore. Rather than a couple of years ago, he was sort of thing.
Yeah. No, you can't see where the goals are coming from. But that said, if I had to put a prediction, I'd have gone for 2-1 to Wolves. I think that we do have goals in us, and we do have a lot of energy. And if a team are struggling, we will have that ability to put somebody under pressure if we want to.
So I've got that prediction from you now. Then 2-1 Wolves.
2-1 is my prediction. Although
so I'll have to text you on Saturday.
If it was 1-1, I wouldn't be surprised. But then that said, if West Brom pull something out the hat again, I think the crowd not being there will play in our favour strangely, because it's very easy to motivate yourself against a hostile crowd, to want to prove them wrong. But when there's nobody there and you've got that empty stadium, it's
like an eerie feel, isn't it? It's horrible, isn't it? I can't wait till fans can come back. It's eerie, and you see some of these goals of the past, like we'll talk about Rooney later. Some of these big goals that these players have scored, and the emotion after they've scored. It's great now when you do score these goals against these big matches, but nothing beats it when the fan emotion's there. And at the moment with that not there, it's sad. But there's been some really good games this season. Don't get me wrong, really exciting games and great goals. So. Which is always it's helping people's mental health as well with the football on as well, which is good. So got your prediction from there, and I think that's good. So Wolves going to win 2-1, so that's good to hear. But I think what I'll quickly just go on to now is, obviously you're not a Man United fan or Liverpool fan, but just a quick discussion. I did go say about in my review a couple of days ago. We're obviously playing Liverpool Sunday. We're top of the league, 3 points clear now with the same games played, and it's fairy tale really for Man United fans. We didn't think we'd be in this position. It's just crazy compared to the start. We've lost 6-2 at home or 6-1, I think was it? Sorry, 6-1 to Tottenham. Who would have thought that we'd be in this sort of place now? But it's a great turnaround by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He deserves a lot of credit. And I think that to me is, at the moment, the Liverpool game, I think Ollie said today, we've only got 2 players out, which would be Williams and Jones. And Phil Jones, I don't think he's played for about a year or so anyway. So it's not really been in this, and he does really need blessing to lead the club. Like I say, we'll say thank you very much for your time here and whatever, but he just can't cut it anymore. Too many injuries. But then Brandon Williams, I think, is the other player that's out definitely. And I think this month he might actually get a loan move. But I think other than that, I think Marshall's a doubt. I think Matic is now back fit. So I think from my point of view with Marshall, maybe a bit of a doubt around him in terms of the injury he went off with against Burnley away. I think what will happen is he may go for the sort of Pogba on the left-hand side rather than, because there's no Marshall. He probably played Pogba on the left. And I think that with Pogba as well, he's played so well since sort of his agent came out saying he's going to leave in the summer. Funny enough. He's either playing for a move in the summer or just playing really well at the moment. But at the moment, United fans, we don't care. He's playing really well. It's good to see. He's playing the best football that we've seen for a long, long time, and the reason why we did buy him. He's playing some really good football. And I just think for me, my AirPods are about to go, I think soon. I have to plug my headphones in. So I think to me is that Pogba's playing really, really well. And I think he's going to be a really, really important player in the game on Sunday. Also, Bruno Fernandes, again, he got Player of the Month today in the Premier League for the fourth time. I think he's won now as many as Cristiano Ronaldo, which is just crazy. It's just unbelievable how well this guy is doing. And he's had such a big impact on the club. So Sunday, I think, will be a big game for him. So it's going to be a close game. I think Liverpool obviously is still missing the big player, which is Jota. He's obviously had a big influence on them as well when he joined. Obviously, he's really good at Wolves. So I think looking at the game, United fans would probably say a draw in this game to get a draw. At least you don't lose momentum, and then you beat them in the cup at home. But really, no matter when you play Liverpool, if we did somehow win this game, to get momentum and win it would be a really kick in the teeth for Liverpool. And I think if we can somehow get a win, that'd be unbelievable. But again, if we had a draw, it wouldn't be the end of the world. So I think my prediction is probably going to be, it just depends how we start. But I think my head says probably draw, but maybe my heart is thinking a 2-1 United win with a Pogba goal, I think, and a Bruno goal. Or maybe a Rashford as well, but I think it'll be Pogba or Bruno. We'll definitely get one goal each. And if any of them score, anybody in the team, if it's Harry Maguire, I don't care. As long as we win the game, that'd be good. But again, like I say, a draw would be good as well. So I'm looking forward to the game on Sunday. It'll be a good game.
I think it depends how Liverpool play. I think they've been very hit and miss this season.
They have.
Sometimes they've played well, sometimes not. If you catch them on a bad day, you stand a very good chance. I mean, look what
they're
Villa
beatable. Look what everyone forget. Look what Villa did, and United had a bad hammer in Tottenham at home, and Liverpool with Villa. It shows you what can happen, and I think that Liverpool aren't as good at this season as last, even though they've improved a bit. With obviously Jota and that, but they've had their injuries again. But all teams do. But I think football-wise, they've not looked as good as they did before. So. No. The league is a lot closer. You've got City up there, Leicester up there, even Everton up there, Spurs, United. It's going to be such close end of the season. I mean, United fans at the moment, some are probably getting carried away, but I think from my point of view, I'm glad we're in with the shout. We've not even played half games yet in the Premier League, so there's a long way to go. But I think for me, at the moment, we're top of the league. Let's just take each game as it comes. And even if we're in there with a shout and it comes to March time, as sort of Fergie used to say, then let's do the charge. So it's going to be a good game on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to say, compared to last season, it's massive progress, isn't it?
100%.
You look at the struggle to get into Europe last season, that it looked touch and go for a very long time.
You did. We only did it on the last day.
Yeah, and then to be actually challenging where you are right now is very, very good. It's you've got to look at that as progress. So. So yeah, it has certainly been a levelling off at the top of the table this year. Liverpool have not looked,
which makes it more exciting for neutrals.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, like I say, as I said, Liverpool have been very hit and miss. I think we hit them. We played them on the day when they decided to hit, because they did hit very hard. Yeah. But yeah, you've got a lot of teams up there, and I think Leicester last season were very, very unfortunate that they'd played some good stuff and it all just fell apart for them at the wrong time. Man City have always been very, very good, but the last couple of seasons, Liverpool and Man City, it was only ever going to be a choice between those two, and the fact that it's leveled out so much does sort of show you how much the Premier League has changed. Now, you just wonder whether that's anything to do with the crowds not being there, or whether it's just been a natural leveling out. I mean, you look at the situation in the Champions League. I mean, you go back a few years and it was just dominated by English teams.
It was.
And then very quickly that moved away, and you looked at the Spanish teams were coming back again, and
they've dropped a bit again this season.
Yeah, and the German teams
teams as well. But I think it's like you say, that the what's happened, I think at the moment, the teams have obviously got worse at the top, but again, I think City were going to be coming to a rebuild. People like Aguero, David Silva going, and obviously Aguero may go in the summer. It's a rebuilding process, and I think when they did playoffs in the league, when we drew, was it 0-0, whatever it was, is that you can tell they're not as good as they were, even though they're hitting some form now. Foden starting. Yeah.
it's a cycle really, and I think that Liverpool and City for a couple of seasons were just untouchable. City, when they did win it that one a couple of times, they were just crazy how good they were. But I think with Liverpool, last season, obviously a lot went for them as well, I think. And obviously then with no fans now, again, it's affecting all clubs. But I think even with United at home, we've had some bad games at home. But people say about our fans, but I think with the Stretford end there roaring, we obviously the same for your team as well, is that we might have got some different results at home. And I think in some of the big games, the United fans are always really up for it. And some of those decisions might have been changed as well. I think that the thing at the moment, that's the same for everybody. And I think that Liverpool helps, got the COP and all that stuff. But I think the moment is that it's the same for everyone, and maybe some teams as well. It's a benefit to them as well. But I think the way the players are conducting themselves at the moment is great, and they're playing these games and playing some good football. And it's just exciting. Going to be an end to the season, but again, we've still got 4 or 5 months still left of some good football. And I think that, like you say, that back to the sort of the Champions League briefly, is that some of these big teams, the Spanish teams, were good. And you look at them this season, because of COVID, they couldn't really buy many players, and Barcelona and Real Madrid went down a little bit. And even this season, Atletico Madrid are at the top of the league. So it's changing a bit for everybody at the moment. And I think even Bayern, had gone out the German Cup, I think, this week. And so there's lots of different changes that happen at the moment. And this team still got great players, but it's just getting all these injuries, the players back and playing what they used to do before. But it's going to be an interesting few weeks, definitely. But I'm looking forward to the game on Sunday. But the sort of sad news today was Wayne Rooney has obviously retired from football, because again, he was interim manager, not played for Derby for a long time now, a good few months, because he's been interim manager. And now he's officially got the job. And I know there's some talk there about ownership stuff, and that they may have to get taken over. And I think there's rumours of them may go into administration. Also, as well, they're on about may have to sell some of the young players. I think there's one young player that's 16 at United and Liverpool are after. So that's obviously all going early. But he took the manager's job, so fair play to him. He's done really well there. I don't even know if he's lost yet. I think I saw a stat. So he's doing well. But again, when I did see it come through and he ended his playing career officially, I was like, God, I feel old. I remember him bursting onto the scene when I was younger, and the Everton goal against Arsenal when he signed for Man United after Euro 2004. And I remember looking on teletext. Some of the people watching this probably don't even know what teletext is. Watching that and going into every 5 minutes, is Wayne Rooney signed? And eventually he did, and the rest was history. And he was a club legend, always will be, ex-captain, scored 253 goals for us, 53 goals I think it is for England, record goal scorer as well for them. And he's just a true legend. And I think from 2004 to 2010, he was absolutely terrific, unbelievable player. Some of his drive, and he was just literally watching. He was up there. I think he's getting talked about in the same breath with like Messi and with Ronaldo back then. He was that good. But I think someone said today he had a bad injury against Bayern Munich in the Champions League with his foot. He did lose maybe a bit of yard pace, but then eventually we lost other players around him as well, people like Ronaldo. And things changed, but again he just kept on being at the club, kept on scoring goals in big games. His role sometimes changed in terms of being a 10 or being in midfield. Not being the old Rooney of sort of from 04 to 10, but for the longevity of his career at United, he'll go down as one of the best ever, and probably maybe my favourite United player. Some of the important goals he scored as well, like the Man City overhead kick, absolutely incredible. Newcastle goal, when I remember when he was arguing with the referees, that sort of started that sort of fiery hothead, and he argued with the referee and he just bashes it in the top bins, absolutely unbelievable. He hit it like as hard as anything, and nearly broke the net. Unbelievable goal, and just love that sort of Rooney watching. When I was younger, to watching come on the scene, and it was a joy to watch. So it's quite sad that he's retired. It makes you feel old, but again, I'm just glad that I witnessed him playing. He was a really, really good footballer, and I think he'll be he was a leader at United as he got older, and obviously England as well. And I think being a manager, I can see he'll do well, and maybe in the future, we never know if he'll be a future England manager or even Man United manager, but I think he'll do well in his football. But it's just, you look at this, you think, well, he's 35. I saw today. So for someone to retire that young, it's quite like, you think, oh, that's crazy. But in a way, he did start at a really, really young age. I think he signed for United when he was maybe like 18 or something. So he did start really young, and he did have some injuries that affected him, similar to sort of Owen. And you looked at some of these other players like Scholesy, Giggsy, they changed the game a bit more to carry on. But I think with Rooney, he'd always played at the top. I think he went to Derby for a short-term thing to help them in the team, in sort of midfield role mainly. And I think from then on, really, he didn't want to carry on anymore and wanted to go straight into management, because I was thinking, Wayne, you could play a couple more years, try and get Derby up and maybe go to management later, but he wants to do it now. He wants to finish his career. So, and obviously you don't play forever, but he stopped at 35, which is still quite youngish. But I think the miles on the clock for Rooney and the injuries he's had and the amount of games he's played, I think it's probably in a way like a sort of a 40-year-old body, because he's probably played all these games and had all these injuries. So I think for me, you can probably see why he has retired, and I think now he'll have a long career in management. So yeah, it's a shame to see him retire today, but one of the best careers that I think we'll see from an England player. So what do you think, John, on the sort of Wayne Rooney, what I've just said?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in terms of England, he's got to go down as one of the better players. He's one of those that just you tend to find we get a lot of players come through at an early age with England and do well. And the other one you compare it to would be Michael Owen.
Owen, yeah.
He scored he burst onto the scene. I remember that in '98.
Argentina goal.
Yeah, but the trouble was with Owen, I think, injuries hit him hard. And
he couldn't change his game. He said, didn't he? He didn't want to. He couldn't be that sort of number 9. He was always the one with pace, and he could never be the same.
Yeah, and to be fair, I certainly know what you're feeling. You know what you're saying about making you feel old. I mean, I've obviously got a few more years on the clock than you, and the amount of times when you remember players when you hear about them as these fantastic young starlets, and then they've been referred to as veterans, and then they retire. Yeah. It does make you feel very old.
And then the managers as well. It's crazy, isn't it? But I think that like you said with Rooneys, that when he come into the scene, he was so passionate to play for England. And I think, like I put on my Facebook post earlier on, that Euro 2004, I've not seen a player come onto the scene like that. Apart from obviously we had Owen before as well, was just crazy. But then Rooney came in, he was unbelievable, and some of the goals he scored, the influence on the team, that team he had then as well was crazy. But I think for me, I think if you wouldn't have had that injury against Portugal, I honestly think we probably would have won that Euros. We were that good, and with him in the team, we were unbelievable. When he got that injury, obviously he signed for us a couple of months after, I think we would have won that, and he was the best player in that tournament without a shadow of a doubt. And it's just a shame, really. But I think that for England, he's obviously had his trials and tribulations a couple of times. He had that one in South Africa when he was mowing the fans, different getting on his back. But I think he was so passionate to play for England and United that sometimes things went over the top, because he probably maybe did care too much, and fans were getting on his back. He's always in the media, and I think as well is that he came into sometimes tournaments rushed via injury. I think Sven got him into the one tournament too early. He was not fit, and I think in that 2010 World Cup with the rant, he probably came back too quickly. He looked unfit. I think sometimes he probably knew that himself. He knew that he could probably try, but he took it out on the fans because he knew in his body wasn't in it. So I think that in a way is a shame. But other than that, even some of the goals, I remember the one against Scotland, he scored a such an important goal. That one was, and so passionate, and the crowd were going mad, and he scored a goal to sort of shut them up. That was great. And it was, he's been a great player. Sort of like what I sort of you were saying is that he's played mainly 10, but he's always been better, I think, with me, with another striker like a Van Persie and Nistelrooy, Ronaldo, Tevez, Berbatov. He's been with another one, but again, he's been able to play in midfield. He can play. He's been played sometimes on the wing and swapped about. But he did have one or two seasons as a number 9, and he scored unbelievable amount of goals. But I think he always wanted to come back and influence the game a bit more, so he was more of a 10. So I think he was always better with another striker, really, from my opinion.
I always remember when we spoke last time, I'd said about how I thought him and Berbatov had played really well together.
Oh yeah, in that
just absolutely,
because you watched the movement, didn't you?
Yeah,
it was really good. That was to hear that.
But I was going to say that it's one of these things when it comes to your age. I mean, I've always enjoyed playing football, but I noticed that as soon as I was hitting my late 30s, early 40s, that I was always a very fast player. And I noticed that my pace was going.
I remember your pace, John.
It was all right, wasn't it? And then all of a sudden you lose the pace, and then I'd stop playing for a bit, and all throughout my 20s, 30s, etc. You stop playing for a bit, and then after a few months you think, oh yeah, I want to play again now. But then after you got to that point, I don't play anymore. I stopped. I haven't missed it. I don't want to go back. And if you feel that way, And that may be that, he has lost a yard of pace, because it's at that kind of level, it's going to take it out of you more than it does, with the sort of things that we did.
Yeah.
It's if you feel as though you're only ever going one way, which is into decline, it must be hard to motivate yourself to go and train.
And do you really want to carry on, keep playing the Championship in midfield?
Well,
and that you don't,
yeah.
do you, people kicking you about and whatever, and
Because if Derby, if you had got Derby, or he was at Derby and they did go and get promoted, you've then got to say that if Derby if Derby wanted to push on and actually survive in the Premier League, would Rooney actually be able to do it? I mean, obviously United let him go, and then Everton let him go. So would he become a bit part player at that point? It's probably not what he wanted.
No, it's not. And it's like, even when he was at Everton, when he went after us, he'd obviously still had a big influence on him. He scored that amazing goal with the was it the one from the halfway line or something?
Yeah.
Amazing goal. But again, he was having more of an influence when he wanted to get back in the team. I think Allardyce had been manager then and playing him more in midfield, and he was playing really well. But I think, like, when they said he could go and he wanted to experience America, I think he's probably glad he did that. He did well at Everton in sort of midfield role and sometimes striker role, but he's glad he went back there, and he sort of smashed it in America and then come back. And I think at that point then he had nothing else, nowhere else to go. So he didn't want to go play anywhere else in the Premier League other than Man United or Everton. So the only other option then was to Championship. They had the money. They went to Derby, and then I think then more and more the months have gone on. He probably doesn't, like you say, doesn't feel like anymore have much of an influence on the game. Apart from, I think I've seen him score a couple of free kicks, because again, you don't need to the pace. Some of the free kicks I've seen him score in the Championship have been brilliant. And I remember the one I saw a couple of days ago again was when he played us in the Cup about a year or two ago. And he had the free kick last minute, and he was going in for Derby. United fans were probably wanting him to score. I was like, yeah, I don't mind. He's a legend. But then he was going top bins. We're already 3-0 up anyway. And Romero did like a wonder save to keep his clean sheet, and so he didn't score. So that was a shame. Good we got the clean sheet, obviously, but for Rooney it was a shame for him. But yeah, so it's end of an era. But I've loved watching him. One of my favourite ever players. So it's end of an era for that. But I think there's always, like you say, with these players that come on the scene, there's always another one that you watch after. Like, you've got Fabio Silva at Wolves, you've got Amad Diallo at Man United, you've also got Greenwood, Rashford, all these young players. It always happens in the cycle, but you always remember that some of your favourite players, they'll always be, your go down as your favourite. But it's just sad when those ones go. But there's always new ones to take over that mantle. So it's just a way that it always evolves with football, which is key. So I think our predictions, who knows? We've said them on Jamie's Football Chat tonight. 2-1, you've gone for Wolves. I've gone 2-1 for United, but again, I think with my head, it maybe be a draw 1-1, which I'd take, but I'd hate a Liverpool loss. Never be the end of it, would we? Looking forward to both games. One on Saturday, one on Sunday. So that's everyone's weekend sorted. Yeah. You'll be watching the United Liverpool game Sunday, John, won't you?
I'll see if I'm allowed.
See if you're allowed. Right, Emily, I'll ring you. John, can you watch the game on Sunday? It's important.
It's I can't claim I'm going out somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, not like we can go anywhere else, is it?
No, I know. I think the furthest I've been this week is the end of my drive to put the bin out.
Yeah. I've done a couple of local walks, but I'll tell you what, John, I do miss our hikes and that. I can't wait till that comes again. And obviously this year, I'd love to do Ben Nevis. We had it planned for last year. Obviously got cancelled because of lockdown. Obviously we like to do it in June, and I would still like to do it for charity as well if possible. So fingers crossed, nearer the time, be a last minute thing. We can get something sorted, because it would be good. And obviously you wouldn't do it now anyway, because you can see the conditions now up there. It looks horrific. We wouldn't do it then now anyway. So, but fingers crossed we can do it. But like I say, John, we need to do another one of these videos again. I really enjoyed the discussions on your Wolves stuff, and obviously I'll chat on Man United and Rooney and that. Really enjoyed it. Thanks everyone for watching, and hope everyone has a great weekend. And John, you'll have to join me on here again, because we can't meet in person.
No worries. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Cheers, John. Have a great evening. Thank you very much.
You too.
Cheers. Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.